is codebuddies.org live code hangout. By joining or scheduling a hangout, you can ask questions, work through tutorials, share ideas, or pair program on open source projects. In today's hangout, we're not probably going to be doing so much coding, and this is definitely not a tutorial. These are hangouts, meaning we kind of work on projects, collaborate, and chat about ideas. And we just kicked off this project called Sustainable Urban Design Space. And we don't have, a concrete idea of what the next steps are. There's some broad design goals, and I'd like to make those more explicit and start building a roadmap. So in software development, you spend maybe almost as much time planning and organizing tasks as people do coding. I don't know if it's a one-to-one balance, but definitely planning is important, and having a roadmap and following through that is important. So we have a documentation site that briefly describes the project, and we've got an initial project scaffolding here where we've essentially started a Django app with basic user accounts. And we've got, this was actually the first issue, so we've actually closed that one. And there's a couple of other kind of low-hanging fruit I think would be good just to get the pattern of developing the project, how Django projects work in general, as well as provide something meaningful for people to, like a reason for them to visit our project. So today I'll be just creating a few issues and kind of explaining some of the higher level goals. So there's a few open source projects that I think we can draw from, and I've got them open in these tabs. And then we might need a place to communicate, because right now we're sort of sending messages on Twitch, and these GitHub issues are good for discussions, but not for a real-time chat and general discussions. It's kind of challenging. So as a project matures, you'll want places for a couple types of discussions to happen. Asynchronous, meaning discussions that happen over time. Somebody might reply, an hour or a day later, and you want people to be able to come into that discussion thread and pick up the thread even if they're just looking at it for the first time. So for those, we'll typically set up a discussion forum. And then the more real-time discussions typically happen via some sort of a chat interface. So as the project matures, we'll want to provide those, sort of forums for people to communicate. For the real-time chat, there's this really good open source federated chat protocol and community called Matrix, and Riot.im is one of the main implementations of this Matrix protocol, and it's already trusted by, for example, KDE here, and they have open source clients for the web as well as mobile phones, and it's sort of like a Slack alternative in ways. It's not as maybe polished as Slack. It's got some shortcomings, but I think it's such a good initiative. It really is good for open source projects to support. So group chat, security, it's got built-in encryption. I'm just logging in over here, and I guess they've added end-to-end encryption recently, so I had to kind of generate a key. It took a little bit the first time I signed in, but it looks like now I have verified my key, and I'm in. So I've got some groups here defined. These live coding streams are done through the CodeBuddies community. So a while back I created codebuddies.org group, and they're sort of like, these groups are kind of like having your own Slack instance where you can organize several channels, but these channels intermix into the broader community. So essentially they operate more like filters, a way to just show specific chat rooms. For example, I just added the Sustainable Urban Development group, and we haven't added a room. So we'll probably create, like a lobby room or something like that. So these are really good ways, for developers to stay in more or less real-time communication. Here's the Rust language channel. I've been just checking out Rust. I've not built anything with it. Code Buddies, I've tagged a few of these existing groups, as well as just creating a Code Buddies lounge. And I think this Django, I created it a little while ago. So let's just create a room. See if I can tag it. It's a little bit awkward. Let's just see how it goes. So we'll make it public. We'll enable it. Okay, so within public rooms you can't have end-to-end encryption apparently. SUD is the acronym for Sustainable Urban Design. Actually, we're going to look at, well, they're kind of the same, design and development. Development is putting designs into action, into making them real. So we want the development to occur, but also the design. In any case, I'm just going to create a room here. See if it works. And one feature request I asked for, let's see what happens. It's running a little bit slow. I don't have any error messages here. There it goes. So I'm just going to be patient with these projects. I think the ethos of Riot is worth it, a little bit of just patience. But one problem I had, and it looks like it still hasn't been it hasn't been really fixed. You have to create a room, and then it doesn't automatically get tagged to the community, so I'll help out with that. You have to go in again. I've done this once. It wasn't too hard. And then I'm in the room here, and I've filtered this group, but I need to now add it to the Sustainable Urban Development group. And I opened a feature request that said, when you filtered it down to a group and you add a room, just automatically handle this part because it's a little bit confusing. So this is the room setting, and I've got a room and group of the exact same name, so that's adding to the confusion a little bit. But I think if I right-click and say View Community. Hey, what's up, Kyle? How you doing today? Thanks for joining in the session. I'm trying to set up a little chat so we can stay in touch a little bit easier than on Twitch. I have a little kind of a matrix room or riot.im, and I've got it installed on my phone and desktop, so I'll get more proactive notifications. I don't have Twitch installed on those places. Purdue's USmart. I've not heard of that. Let's check it out. I'll have to maybe just come back to this Riot thing. It was not too hard. Rooms here. Rooms to show. Get your own server. All right. So then I'm in the settings for the Sustainable Urban Design group, which I made a development. Here we go. Add rooms to this community. I knew it wasn't too hard, but hopefully it'll let me just matrix room ID. I think it was like that. It would really be nice if I could just... it does. Okay, auto completes it. So now we can save it, and if I, for example, switch to Code Buddies, it's probably working. All right, let's check out this Purdue USmart Urban Sustainability Modeling and Analysis Research Team. Ooh, really cool. don't know what kind of smart transportation and shared mobility, big data, sustainable consumption. Very cool. Yeah, we have to read some of these, and it's kind of interesting. They're looking at specific components of the urban design, infrastructure development. Okay, I'm just kind of here we go. So now it's showing up. Everything on the right is just kind of slow today. I'm not sure what's going on, but cool, it's working now. So if I go to Code Buddies group, you can see the rooms relating to Code Buddies. If you're interested in game development, you might join the Godot room. And again, I didn't create all these rooms. I'm just kind of tagging them. The rooms can belong to multiple communities. It's kind of free form, which, it's not too bad. You can make your rooms private and encrypted, so not every room has to be public. But yeah, I like it overall. It's a big kind of community initiative. So now we have the Sustainable Urban Design group and the Sustainable Urban Development channel. I don't know. I just wanted to start something. So, Kyle, would you consider checking out this matrix and kind of trying to use it as a way for real-time communication? And eventually I want to set up more of a forum, like a discourse forum for asynchronous communication. It's kind of like a mailing list. Yeah, that'd be actually really cool to reach out and get in contact with them. And they might even have some of their people who are interested in collaborating or contributing to the project as part of their kind of studies. Industrial engineering, environmental ecological engineering, ecological sciences and engineering. Very cool. Mechanical engineering, environmental engineering. Yeah, that'd be good. Okay, cool. Yeah, no hurries. And the cool thing about Riot, if that's what you're checking out, it's got an Android and iOS app, so it makes it pretty easy to get up and running. And I've got it on my phone as well. It's open source. I don't want to make these things mandatory, and I know things like Slack are pretty popular, and the other one, Discord, is pretty popular and good. But for open source projects, I think it's good to stay in the vein of open source communications tools. All right. Yeah, so today, Kyle, we're going to have kind of a laid-back session. We're not going to really necessarily be coding, so it's more abstract and theoretical, which might be more up your alley, sort of more in your wheelhouse, to help get a more clear picture of what we want to do with the project. All right, no hurries. Just let me know when you're ready for some discussion. And if you want to do voice, that's cool. We can set up a voice channel. Or if you're comfortable typing, then that's whatever's comfortable for you. But I hope this is going to be more of a dialogue, because that way we can plan together. Anyway, I'll wait. Okay. One of the cool things on this Riot is these integrations. In fact, you can kind of bridge it over to synchronize messages between Slack and Riot, as well as there's a couple others. Discord, like there's this video game my son and I play called Mind Test, and one of the servers on there, Luna, they're pretty much using all the communications channels. They have a Riot channel, Discord, and Telegram, I think, and maybe even an IRC. I can't remember if IRC's in the mix there, but it's cool. They're all bridged together, so even when you're in the game, let me think here. I think you can see the messages from like Telegram and Riot in the game in Mindtest, as well as when you send a message from Mindtest, it'll propagate to all those channels. So kind of it's a good way of integrating the various communities and letting people use the tools which they're familiar and comfortable with, which they're comfortable. So discourse is that asynchronous style communication. It almost has real-time chat, and it's very, it's like a forum slash mailing list. It's got email integration. You can reply to messages right from your inbox. It's really nice. Their managed hosting is kind of enterprisey, I would say. But it is free and open source. It's built with Ruby on Rails. And it integrates also with things like GitHub. We're on there, of course. Yeah, I just would have to figure out, hosting. I'm not sure. They might have free hosting for open source. But you have to have a certain number of stars or something like that. Could I add the link again? Yep. When was this? Relatively recently. So we're eligible. We have to have 10 contributors, so we're not there. And we kind of already have a clear need for discussions. Well, yeah, maybe we'll get to 10 plus contributors. But anyway, I think these, I could set up a discourse server on DigitalOcean or something relatively cheaply, like $5 or $10 dollars a month or something like that. Hetzner also, I think, has competitive VPS. They're located in Germany and Finland, which is kind of interesting from a data privacy standpoint. But Kyle, I know you're in the U.S. You are in, let me get this right. Let me get this one right. Michigan. DigitalOcean has a one-click installer for Discourse, and their pricing is, and they have servers in the United States. They have a bunch of one-click installers somewhere mentioned here. So, their product for droplets, their pricing is pretty good, and I've had a great experience using their dashboard. And yeah, I don't know, here's a bunch of one-click apps. So there is a Discourse one-click app. Discourse is pretty easy to upgrade, but it's just a matter of like timeliness, when we need this forum, when it would become useful. I think earlier than later, but for now we can probably get pretty far with just GitHub. Zulip is a nice chat powered by Python. I think maybe Django. Here it is, Discourse. With the Discourse droplet, I think the instance they want you to set up is like $20 a month, something like that. It'd be kind of cool if there was one for Django. In any case, I'm not going to go through all that right now. Okay, let's see if Kyle's in here. Okay, should show me people, members. Oh, I can do that. Oh yeah, they've even got an IRC bridge here. All right, so let's stick with this. So yeah, issues. So we're going to kind of group our issues with labels. Actually, let me go ahead and add this label here. If I manage our labels, there's some default labels that come with, not my desk, GitHub. Documentation, enhancement, first good issue. So like enhancements are for feature requests, documentation is self-explanatory, duplicate is a good reason to close one, and these are good ways to signal new contributors. In fact, GitHub will promote these. One that I think would be good for this project is just called research. self-explanatory, and we'll just go with the default color. It's a nice mild blue. And now we can create some issues. All right, see you in a minute, Kyle. So this first issue, I think, is a feature request. So in the previous session, we sort of set some SMART goals, which are specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and timely. It's not that strict, but what it boils down to is it's something you can concretely do in relatively short period of time, and that it'll have a positive effect on getting you closer to your goals. And the goals, I think I put them in the documentation here. Impact. We're making an impact map. So we want to get people to visit our site, either our documentation or the project, the deployment, and have like a consistent, flow of visitors. 50 might even be too high. I don't know. 10 unique visitors might be sufficient. It's hard to tell if there's going to be a lot of bots visiting and how we would filter those out. Maybe have some sort of meaningful engagement at some point. But the other place, which might be a good way to filter out bots, is having contributors. What they would contribute, well, I'm not exactly sure. Either contribute to a GitHub task, like a research or enhancement, or submitting a bug report, or this feature here. I think the project itself can provide some useful resources that I haven't found. Now in architecture, and then subsequently software development, there came this idea, I think in the 1970s, and in the architecture movement in the 1990s in the software development, Gang of Four. I get the dates right. It's not so important, but this is not the group of four. This is not what I was thinking. Band design patterns. The idea is design patterns. So 1990, elements of reusable object-oriented software. Gang of Four, yeah. All right. There's just other uses of that phrase. And the history, the inspiration of this was actually from architecture. There's some architectural design patterns. This is all about the software design. And nothing's perfect. Everything's going to have critics. Some of these software design patterns are very specific to other languages, but the point is that you kind of have patterns to solve common problems. And similarly with architecture, if you have a flow of people through a courtyard, there'll be common design patterns for the architectural elements in a courtyard or in I don't know. Much more about it. Architectural design patterns. Okay, so they're just called architectural patterns, general reusable solution to a commonly occurring problem in software architecture. But also this could be physical, human spatial architecture. The key is I have not found sort of a pattern library, a design pattern book or library for sustainable urban design, or even urban design. Going to find it right off the bat, but there's a couple books. I'm thinking about ordering this one. In fact, it's on offer right now. Maybe I should just do it. Because the book is actually on offer. Let me just see this in a different tab, though. Maybe the sale is over, but it's like 30% off. And I kind of hesitated. I didn't want to order stuff from abroad during sort of this COVID crisis, but I think this book comes back up. And books are kind of essential products, and also our COVID restrictions are being loosened up. So I'm just going to go ahead and order this. Sustainable Nation. This is probably the closest thing that I've found to urban design patterns. I had it bookmarked, and I got an alert from the book depository saying it's on sale, 30% off. So I should just get it and use it as a reference. The key thing is any of these design patterns would be kind of copywritten, and you could use them. But I'd like to create a feature in our software of urban design patterns that can be reused and that are openly licensed for any reuse and reproduction. So that will be what we'll add. Urban common urban design patterns. I mean, fundamentally, I think all of them should be, so it should actually be Sustainable Urban Design Patterns Library. And so all of them would promote sustainability. And examples, we want to see where in the world this is deployed. Sorry if you're in the... Okay. Kyle's not back yet. So, yeah, we want it to be visuals. We want photographs or diagrams, as well as kind of geographic examples. Something... can be... Very cool. So this is an enhancement. This is one of our first enhancements. This was actually one of the initial ideas I sort of had to kick off the project, and it's something of maybe concrete value the project could bring with relatively low. It's kind of a low-hanging fruit. Django's really ready to do these types of features. The more complicated stuff is going to be like relating to this 3D visualization and sort of the more video game-like experience for sustainable analytical perspectives of urban environments, as well as potentially allowing people to model the heights of the buildings. But I believe just the building metadata should allow the building to be extruded, or there's readily available building geometries. So what we would probably focus more on is just styling and the more visual aspect like this, saying all these people have a good access to fire coverage, for example, or something. All right, and for that, there exists a lot of data that's already on OpenStreetMap, and there's a few examples of how the data model is, the OpenStreetMap data model, and some real-world examples. Some of them are really nice. This is unfortunately proprietary, but this is really the nicest one I've seen. Just check my stream and make sure. All right, I can see the chat over there. We're good to go. But man, I wish this F4 group would like publish more about their about their work. I'm just reading these license terms. Yeah, so basically I can't even really, with integrity, get on there and show you what it looks like because I have to use a non-commercial license, and the videos I release are just Creative Commons attribution. I don't have any non-commercial restrictions. So if you have a chance, get on this. I'll put the link in the chat so it's there for reference. And just check out these examples. Some of them aren't working, but you'll get an idea of where we're going. And if you like city simulation games, do try out, what is it called? Cities Skylines. This is really the inspiration for this project, to be honest. It's such a good game. And what we realize is that for urban design, for sustainable urban design, we need simple and intuitive interfaces. Hey, what's up, Quantum? Haven't seen you in a while. Welcome. What have you been up to? Any cool projects? Exciting projects? Have you been staying sane and healthy in the social distancing? All right, so we got an enhancement. Cool. Work and depression. Yeah, I hear you. It's a little bit, especially with kind of the alienation and isolation part. Depression is a big factor. Yeah. How are you coping with that? Do you have any strategies or any kind of things? If you don't mind my asking, I know it's a very, very personal topic, but I also suffer from depression, so I would be willing to share some of my experiences with that. Oh, really? That's good. Yeah, I'm kind of an introvert myself, so, and in general, people in Finland are a little bit kind of distant, interpersonally distant, so it's kind of normal. Social distancing is kind of normal here, and it's kind of what I do. Yeah, people taking the just the severity of the pandemic too lightly. They're not. Is your family not honoring the social distancing, or are they mocking it, or how do you mean? What do they do? What are they up to? And how do you see other people taking it too lightly? I just realized some of these are experiments. We're going to do a few. I'm going to set up another repo for just experiments. So I'll create a label. Let's see if it's brightly colored. No, it's this. Well, it's the same color, I think. Research, in a way, is like an experiment, isn't it? Maybe I don't need that. Yeah. Have they otherwise honored the social distancing? Are they just kind of at a point where it's like springtime and they want to get together? Or maybe I won't have this label. And do you sort of feel pressured, or how do you feel about that? Yeah. What are the restrictions like where you live right now? For example, in Finland, I think on the 14th of this month, they're loosening a lot of them up. They still recommend people work from home, but kids are going back to school, I think. They say like secondary and tertiary schools should still do distance learning. What else is there? Where they're going to allow travel outside of the country in the Schengen zone, which is like a bunch of European countries, but not from other places, more distant places. I can do long distance travel now if I needed to go to work, but we're going to be working from home. Yeah, it's tricky, and particularly people in the essential services. Like, there's so many of them that they just absolutely have to go to work. They, kind of in the tech industry, we're pretty lucky that, well, even a lot of the companies in the tech industry are having pretty big financial difficulties, but yeah, that our kind of work allows us or accommodates remote working and stuff like that. All right, so the research task is we need to determine a way, essentially, we want to move closer to the city skylines idea of, when you put a school in a neighborhood, all of the houses around that school, they kind of get a brighter shade of green, and these little smiley faces appear over them. And we don't want to be trite, but that's a powerful, an intuitive way of demonstrating the impact that placing a school has on that neighborhood. And urban design tools should do that too for real-world cities. And for example, we could take a look at any of our given cities and look at it through different lenses. In particular, I've been reading this book called Urban Planning for Dummies. I'll admit, I'm a dummy in a lot of ways. And the first couple components of urban planning it mentions is land use planning and then housing. Those are like the chapters I've gotten to in the various types of housing. So those land use, those are two lenses that you'll kind of sequentially work through, and you sort of see those in city skylines or SimCity. Like you have the zoning, you have high density residential, low and medium density residential. Yeah, but quantum. So I guess you're thinking that. Do you think the barbecue is going to put them at unnecessary risk? You say it's unnecessary. Kind of. Is there a better way that they could have some social interaction? And it's going to be an outdoor event. Do you suppose that people would be in and outdoors, or would it be kind of totally outdoors? What kind of because I know we've gone to like family reunions where it's all outdoors, so you can kind of do a little social distancing in those cases. But yeah. So let's see. The basic idea is we need to get a quick quick prototype of working with 3D geospatial data. And we do not want to reinvent the wheel here. Yeah, it's not necessary. That's true. Yeah, I'm not really in a situation here where I've been. Well, I guess my son he turned 6 recently. He had a birthday party, and for that we went over to his grandma's house. And his mom and I were separated, but and she was apprehensive about it at first. And it was his choice. I was like, kind of straightforward with him. I was like, well, due to the virus, we have to change a lot about how we're living, and we're not going to be able to have a big birthday party, this year, but is there anything you want to do? And so he thought maybe it would be cool to go see his grandma and her dog, Hari. So I was like, yeah, I can do that. And I called her, or text messaged her or whatever, and then, yeah, she thought it was a good idea, and I told his mom, and, well, she didn't think it was a good idea. But in any case, what I'm getting, I guess we kind of compromised at the end of the day, and I was going to drop my son off, and, I didn't have to necessarily show up there. But, and anyway, his grandma invited me in too. So there was, a few of us gathered for a couple of hours. But I don't know, Finland has had very mild experience with Corona. Hold it in your pants. What does that mean? I'm not sure what that means. Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, in particular, people, elderly are at risk. And I think the Finnish health ministry said that most of the people who've been affected here in Finland have had pre-existing conditions and been elderly. So you have to be very mindful. Even if you feel healthy and don't feel any symptoms, if you're going to be around people who are asthmatic or might have heart issues, it's just you've got to be really careful. So I think, yeah, your family, have they, do you have anybody in your family that has pre-existing conditions or elderly people who would be at the barbecue? And what's the sort of impact been? Okay, so yeah, you've got a pre-existing condition, so you would be at risk in a gathering like that. Without reinventing the wheel, so we don't want to reinvent the wheel here. Such as urban buildings. Beginning of the following. So we've got this iTowns library, which I just clarified today. The license is compatible with our project, which is cool. There's a couple of examples here. Yeah, I don't blame you for, I mean, it's the general guideline is to, honor social distancing. Right now, gatherings of up to 10 people are permitted in Finland. So really, it's just check the local health authorities. What are their guidelines? And follow those. That's what I've been trying to do, at least. I'm not trying to actually solve your problem or be prescriptive. So please don't take it that way. I just kind of, hear what you're saying and kind of thinking aloud. It's basically, we decided that my son could go back to preschool next week, at the end of, or the week after next, because the local authorities, the health minister, has loosened up the restrictions starting on the 14th. And his mom and I discussed that because that's basically, our role, our job, our prerogative, and we both agreed that it's an all right thing to do. So, same, yeah, particularly, yeah, it's having a severe economic impact, isn't it? Yeah, I kind of see that too. There's a lot of pressure, particularly in the United States, to just bend to the corporate will in general and bail out airlines and all that stuff. It's kind of, well, I don't know if it's shocking. It's like we're beyond surprised that it's just blatant corruption, I suppose. I'm not even going to go into that. I've just got to keep on keeping on. But what I'm trying to show here is this. For a web feature service to 3D objects. So a web feature service is another open source standard by the Open Source Geospatial Foundation, OSGeo. And then you can serve up geographic feature data, like shape files and things, and overlay that on like base maps and stuff like that. So here's an example of serving up 3D building data. Whoa, I slips on a slippy map. I went too far. Slip sliding away. And you got a couple of layers here. You've got bus lines and buildings. And you can see you can even control the coloring of the buildings and get some metadata back there. Bounding box, object. So this looks like it would probably be a good project for a prototype. And this is, what was it called? WFS to 3D objects. Cool. Right, right. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I think in California, I don't know, like Gavin Newsom, he's governor of California. I think he's been kind of firm, but they're also relaxing the guidelines. I kind of trust what they're saying in Finland. They've been monitoring it pretty closely, and the number of cases is fairly minuscule here. Probably due in part to the social distancing. Clearly that's the purpose. I think climate plays a factor as well. All right. So yeah, we're just going to go with the guidelines. Finland's kind of a capitalistic nation. It's got a kind of interesting history, and in general tends to be more socially democratic. It has good social support systems, like a lot of European countries in general. With healthcare, universal healthcare, and and free education, even college, tertiary education. But it also has a free market. Like they promote free market ideals here in innovation and public-private partnerships. So there's pressure, and they don't want to have negative economic impacts. But I don't know to what extent that's influencing the Finnish government's guidelines. But I trust them. What am I getting at here? 3D City Database is what I'm after. 3D City DB. And hopefully this kind of experiment won't prove to be too foreboding or difficult. We want to keep it simple. But just document the parts of the picture that we may be adopting. So, got those links in there. Quantum, are you interested in doing some open source development? Would you like to kind of contribute to this project? We can find a good first issue for you to work on. I think I should put it on this milestone 0.1. Yeah, cool. Well, heck, you could be one of our first sort of, I don't know, what would be called prototype testers. And okay, cool. Yeah. I mean, if you're having, particularly if you're suffering from depression and stuff like that, but also the social distancing, there's no shame in taking care of yourself, right? That's what I'm saying. I'm going to affirm that. The importance of taking care of yourself and seeking, help or whatever helps you. Certainly, when I get heavy depression here sometimes, and I haven't really built a super big support network. So that's one of the things. I feel a little socially isolated already, so I don't really talk about my depression outwardly, and that is, I think, an anti-pattern, so to speak. It's kind of, because then I just ruminate on it, or just kind of like it festers. So yeah, if you got a support network and somebody to talk to, even a counselor or something like that, that's pretty important too. And I've thought about it now, going to counseling personally, because for a long time I was just going to work and back, and I work in Helsinki, and I live 2 hours north of Helsinki, so I don't have a lot of time outside of work to do even basic things. I telecommute a couple of days a week, but I just neglected my health. I've started to go into a gym, and I might just, and since I've been on the social distancing and working from home, I've actually gone to a doctor or psychiatrist and things. So, yeah, I don't know if you've got those type of opportunities. I know I've got occupational health care, but also there's certain amounts of coverage for, psychotherapy and whatnot are essential services. They're essential health care services. They're not, vanity services like tooth whitenings or something like that, right? This is essential for the well-being of society. And I just wish the United States could sort of get our act together with some kind of a universal health care. Just our leaders I don't know. I don't want to get out too far on that. And I've been in Finland. I live in Finland now. Okay, cool. And that's good that you're clear on what you need. And again, I don't want to be prescriptive because I think that's not what you need. Most people don't need, other people to solve their problems, right? And I'm not trying to solve your problems. So please don't take it that way either. I'm kind of just speaking from my own experience and kind of relating as it relates to your experience. Cool. Yeah, cool. Yeah, this is, I like this ability we can just kind of open up about these topics. It's sometimes a little taboo to say, I'm depressed, Like, everybody's sad sometimes. Get over it. And they're like, well, no. This is chronic, and this is something I need to process type of a thing. It's okay to acknowledge it. So basically, this project is totally Python so far. Quantum, are you kind of, I can't remember, it's been a while since we've talked about development-related things, but would you be willing to, would you be more interested in working on like a Python part of the thing, JavaScript, or sort of researching stuff? What's appealing to you? Because we have all three of those. Okay, Python and JavaScript, so good. You'll be right at home. We're going to try to keep things lean and only add things as we need them, but there will be JavaScript. It's like that movie, There Will Be Blood, in any case, which is kind of interesting because it relates to the fossil fuel industry, and we're kind of, anyway, that's a good movie too. Interesting. Coen Brothers, right? Yeah, I think so. Who directed that? Yeah, but I don't want to commit to a Python backend and JavaScript frontend just yet, because Django has some nice faculties, some nice features, bells included, for generating, server-side rendering of pages, including imputing data into the template or interpolating data into template strings and stuff like that. So I want to kind of take that as far as we can go. And there's a couple of techniques we can even do to hand over data from the Django rendered templates into a JavaScript, framework that expects the data to be in some configuration property or something like that. So yeah, I don't want to go full in on React and leaning towards Vue.js. I don't know, but I'm not committed to anything in the JavaScript, just sprinkles of JavaScript right now. So right now we're just looking at Django. So would you consider cloning the project and just seeing if you have any troubles getting it running, and let me know what I need to document for new developers. You might have experience with Django. Yeah, that's a good point. And I'd like to do as much with Vanilla.js as possible, even perhaps looking more at some of these, HTML5 APIs, for lack of a better, it is, this web platform APIs that are coming along in the past few years, web components, and a bunch of other things that the web platform supports natively now. Even CSS3, I don't know much about any of those. I think there's a lot I could just bring to this project strictly from the web standards and just bring in JavaScript in a way that, what do they call it, incrementally enhances the front end, adding dynamic parts where needed. Okay, you never used Django. Okay, so that's probably something I need to document first off, huh? All right. Well, you've used Git and GitHub, right? So if you and it looks like, did you already fork it? No, that's so if you fork and create a branch, I can quickly walk you through how to get it scaffolded. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, you can probably figure it out. And Django is really well documented. There are some gaps in the documentation, but yeah, it's one of those things. It's a very mature framework, and the documentation is like better than almost any project I've worked with for web development. All right, cool. So design patterns, yes. Just gonna add these links for references. I thought I created 2 issues now, 3 issues now. Oh yeah, I'm gonna finish buying this book real quick. One moment, let me mute while I put in my PayPal details. Ah, dang. One second. All right, I'm back. So I need to edit this order because I sent it to the wrong address. It's a good deal though, 30% off the book. How do I get to my orders? Where's my stuff? That's an interesting link. Really quickly, I'll check the stream manager. Okay, so good to go. I wonder when Kyle's going to be back. All right, cool. Submitted a revision. It was just too easy to check out, and they had everything stored. And in fact, they've got my new address. I'm not sure why it used my old one. Dag nabbit. Yeah, cool. So then hopefully I'll be receiving this book in a couple of weeks. I think things from the UK and during this time are just going to take their time to arrive. And it's sort of a non-essential item, but at the same time, it's really relevant to what we're doing. Did I have an e-book? Digital evaluation copy. Looks like it's print only. All right then, let's continue what we're doing. So we're looking for urban design patterns. That's a PDF. Well, actually, it might be interesting. Smart City Design Patterns, Urban Technologist, Sustainable Nation. So that's, again, the book that keeps coming up, what we're going after, and we're trying to define a pattern library. You can sort of get an example of some patterns. They're pretty visual. These are just street patterns, so that's a pretty obvious one. You know, if you're having cul-de-sacs or a grid-based street system, or maybe a more hybrid zoning with mixed zoning surrounded by more residential or industrial on the outskirts, something like that. These are all things you can experiment with these video games. And we want to kind of bring that game-like environment into the urban design space. So let me just go ahead and check this out. Documents. Urban design. Looks like I've been here before. Was that 20th of January? I still don't know the months and finish. Tamiku. What was Tamiku? Yep, January. What? I surprised myself. Very cool. All right, so let's check out this PDF I just got. Yeah, the virtual environment. Man, it's a challenge. Good, you got it running and everything's working, and you did Python manage pyrun server type thing even, so you got the, yeah, you'll need to create super user. Did you do that? You'll want to log in and manage things from the back end, from the admin section. So yeah, cheers. I didn't have any doubt that you would get that running. Yeah, something like that. So then, you ran the migrations and execute the run server. Okay, then just make sure you do a create super user so that you can have a user to log in. Once you got your super user and you got run server going on, you go to the localhost or whatever 8000/admin. Now we're using just a basic Django admin, and if this project starts to look like a kind of a content management system, it's like a thing where it's geared more around managing, catalogs of content, we might just switch over to Wagtail, which is built on Django. So it's not like switching over, but it's actually augmenting Django, but with this really nice WordPress-like admin interface and content manager, editor interface. Whereas the Django admin's for like administrative users, so only a couple select people would use it. This would be used for more people who are collaborating on kind of curated content. So I don't know the direction of the project. Oh yeah, you got it. All right, so you got a super user. You're able to log into the admin UI. What kind of thing would you like to work on? Do you want to try your hand at this pattern library? Yeah, that's cool. Just enter it twice, and it'll let you bypass password validation. Um, when you do it from the command line, you can just skip the password validation, but you just got to enter the same thing twice. And if it's a problem, we can make our password validation rules more lenient. Let me see. I think I've got the code. I don't have the code running here, but I can show you in the app. Basically in settings pie. Ah, very cool. I just realized. We can put an experiments directory here at the root directory because our Django project's in a subdirectory. Interesting. Yes, very interesting. So what I'm trying to point out here is that way we don't have an extra repo. But what I'm trying to point out here, there's some password validation rules. These are the default ones, similar to username, minimum length, common passwords, and numeric passwords. Yeah, we can just drop any of those. And more information, pretty well documented. Yeah, it is kind of funny. Which one tripped you up? Just you said too short and too common, so you got hit by two of them. Minimum length and common password validator. All right. So do you want to try a JavaScripty experiment or a Django feature? All I've got on the roadmap so far for a 0.1 milestone are these ones. So these issues, you got all three actually. Nice. Very skilled at bad passwords or whatever. All right. Actually, yeah, this one is done. The user account is done. As you can see, we're just able to create a user account. And maybe I'll have an extension to create a login form on the front end. But that's going to beg some questions. We don't even have anything decided about the front end, so to speak. Oh gosh, you got them all. So would you like to take a look at one of these two issues? Yeah, run an experiment or try adding a Django feature? Or do you want to do a little bit of work on the front end? Just some HTML template-y stuff, like a login form, for example. Basic site layout, we don't have much in the base template, so that actually is a place we need to work. I don't know, that would mean creating a Django. Some Django apps and routes and stuff. I haven't really planned that part out. So yeah, actually we already have an account. It's like users or accounts app here, right? So you could just create login views in the users app. Views.py if necessary, and then templates would go in here as well. That's a good follow-up task. And sort of would introduce some interesting thing like creating Django forms, login forms specifically, and handling authentication, which should have mostly batteries included stuff. We don't want to roll around any of that. Let me just add this task. Keep it really brief. It's an enhancement. Shouldn't require a lot of code. Oops, 0.1 milestone. And we also just need a base template. Yeah, Django projects have pretty conventional architecture, or they're clear conventions. I can boil it down a little bit. If we go to our app real quick, the source code here. So here's the project. This is actually a Django project. Hey, Kyle, welcome back. We're just getting Quantum here set up with the development environment, and I've been working on a few issues in our roadmap. So the project should start to get more clear. For our first iteration, this 0.1 effort, not a big delivery, just something small and practical. So we're just going to do a brief introduction to the Django project architecture. We're just following pretty closely conventional architecture. So in a Django project, your root folder contains this managed file, which is scaffolded, and it's kind of the gateway to all the management commands. And we'll touch more on that later if needed. Then there's an initial, when you're scaffolding the app, this folder here is sort of like a configuration folder that has the same name as the project, so it's a little confusing. So you can see sustainable urban design space, sustainable urban design space, a little bit redundant. But there's this ASCII file, which is this asynchronous gateway interface, and a WSGI file, which is web server gateway interface. So asynchronous server gateway interface, web server gateway interface. Django's in the process of becoming more asynchronous. It's not quite there yet, and we don't really need to worry about it right now. But this WSGI standard is like a thing in the Python community for defining web servers and spinning them up and connecting them to proper server like Nginx or Apache or something. Does Django, yes, Quantum, Django has its own template language included, which is called Django template language, I guess, I'm not sure. And it's essentially HTML with kind of mustache templates. So it's got regular stuff like you can do interpolating, interpolate variables into the template, or you can include sub templates in there. It's got helpers like the pipe operator can send your variables into another function that'll run and interpolate the output. It's pretty flexible. Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like, in a way, it's a little bit like object-oriented templates because you can inherit and you can include. You got like mix-ins and stuff. We don't have any examples of that, so that actually might be a good place to start. And we need a base template anyway. Let me just really quick spin up over these. So the settings pie, we touch every once in a while. We'll add some settings. Like last time we added a custom user model so that we could add attributes to the user if needed later without too much fuss or hassle. Now, we're going to get into this in just a second. This is going to be a very brief introduction to Django architecture, but everything else in Django is kind of like an app. And apps are basically glorified Python modules, but they have a conventional structure. So every Django app you look at should be relatively familiar because of the Django conventions. Django itself uses apps for its own internal batteries that it includes, including the admin interface, the authentication, defining custom content type, managing sessions, sending messages to the user based on their activities and popping those into the template and stuff like document saved, or there was an error with your request, whatever. Those are kind of messages. And then static files for like hosting JavaScript and images and stuff like that in a way that doesn't interfere with the server processing code. Then there's middleware. We don't have to worry about too much, but sometimes you'll have to fiddle with that when you install plugins or something. URL confs. So here's the templates. We're going to use the Django templates backend, which is a convention, but you can swap it out with the different ones, but let's not. Every app, if there's a templates directory in the app, then Django knows to look there because this is true. And it can basically put in, when it's rendering the template, it can check for any debug messages if you're in debug mode. It can look at the request to see what's going on there, look for properties there. You can make sure people are authenticated, and you can pass messages all while rendering these templates. The context is like the data that comes into the template. So this is pretty conventional web development stuff. If you've used other web frameworks, you've probably heard of, templates and rendering context into the template and stuff like that. Django is no different with that regard. WSGI is what hooks it up to like Nginx or Apache server. And then databases, we're using just SQLite just to keep things real simple. We'll probably use Postgres. Yes, because PostGIS. But not right now. We don't need it right now. We're trying to be lean. And then we've encountered these password validators and some other metadata here. And so now we're starting to get into the way Django knows to essentially, when somebody comes in via URL, makes a request against a URL, Django will look at the path and map the request basically to either like a class or a function or a submodule that has more URLs defined. So this Django admin app, it's a contributed thing, part of Django core basically, but in the contrib section, it's defined its own URLs. So this says anything in the admin path, maps to the URLs file. So anything, it'll be admin / all these URL points. You should be able to inspect this with VS Code. So this is the settings thing, and the last thing I'll show is like this is the only Django app we've created, and every one of our Django apps is going to pretty much look like this. And probably the most important part is the database model, where you define a class that describes a database table and relationships and fields and methods and all sorts of good stuff in there. We spent a lot of time in here. So we made a custom user model because we didn't want to ask people for their first name and last name when signing up. And for some reason, the Django model, the user model that's been around probably since like 2009 or something, has asked people for their first and last name. So we just kind of created our own user model and just dropped those off of this base abstract user class. So a model gives you an object-oriented interface to a database table and some methods to like query and filter and create and destroy, those kind of operations. Tests is for like unit tests. Views. So this, I don't know, I guess in a particular order. This admin allows you to create, when you go to /admin, it allows you to create interface and generate forms so that administrative users can interact with your data model. So this is just defining field sets so that administrators can set username and passwords and stuff for users. Sometimes you don't even really have to do any of this stuff. You just kind of register it with the Django admin. Views are the kind of another thing where they essentially, when a URL request comes in, a view can either be a class or a method, a function. And if you're using class-based views, then there's particular virtual methods that you'll override, like serve. And inside of those methods, you can do stuff like query databases and process data, and check for validation. And at the end of the function, you just return a response. And that response renders some HTML and context data into that template. I think those are the main things. Another cool thing that Django comes with out of the box is database migrations. So when you make changes to your models, Django will kind of detect those changes and write these migrations that'll run sequentially and modify your templates and can even migrate data and stuff like that. And then you can just run those migrations that you notice when you set up the project. You had to run migrate. I think I'm looking in the chat here before you could do the create super user. So you had a few things you had to run. That's the migrations framework that comes baked into Django since like version 1.8 or something like that. Or wait, yeah, something is kind of new, but not so much. We're at Django 3.0 now. For a while, it was a community contributed module. So if you like, we can do a pair programming session. I'm trying to keep these live streams a little bit short lately, to about 2 hours. So Quantum, if you're still there, let me know. I see there's only 2 viewers in the room, and it doesn't really tell me who is there. But we can set up. We've already got this app, really. All we need is to do these. A couple of views. Let me just, I think there's a tutorial for this. Okay, cool. Just writing a README. Well, that's a good step. Actually, don't we already have a README? But you're just improving our README, I think is what you meant by that, probably. To get set up, yeah, thank you. That's a pretty crucial contribution, in fact. Let's create an issue for that. Awesome. Good initiative. Was that a decently succinct introduction to the Django architecture? Was it clear or a little bit confusing? Or... Yeah, because this whole live coding today is basically what you could call like backlog grooming or maintenance. It's like not so much coding. Yeah, so I think you'll be pretty comfortable with Django. And from what I can tell, it doesn't literally, what they say is it doesn't literally use the MVC. It's like model template view or something like that. But that aside, I think it doesn't really invent too many concepts. I think a lot of it is fairly like familiar, so fairly conventional. MTV, did I say that? MTV, model template view. I don't know really how that differs. Model template view. I guess the view would be the controller and the model is the model and the template is the MVC. Wait. Whatever. Model view model. Okay, so it follows it close enough from 2011. It follows it close enough. It's an MVC framework. Yeah, I thought that was all kind of strange that they would differentiate that. So then, now we've got a little bit more organized development process. If you're interested, Quantum, here's the channel we set up for chatting, and I'll try to get a forum set up when it needs. A commit convention, no, I'm not super strict on it. You know, it's useful if commits are kind of small, you know, single purpose and descriptive. But I'm not going to do squash commit or anything. You don't have to tag each commit with an issue number or anything like that. I think that's a little bit redundant, and it mixes different conventions or mixes different concepts. A commit is not necessarily tied one-to-one with an issue because a commit could fix multiple issues or a pull request could fix multiple issues. So yeah, I don't go to that degree. Yeah, this project is just greenfield, open source, informal. I don't want to put in too many impediments or too much ceremony for contributors. I mean, I think there's going to be enough barrier to entry in general with projects, in my experience, that just getting things set up and making changes to the code kind of a hurdle that a lot of people don't get over. So I would really hate for an improperly formatted commit message to be like a barrier to entry. I just think that. Yeah, and if you're working in an organization, you've got a lot of developers and rapid development cycle and stuff. I can see how that, and particularly if you have, like your issues are in Jira and your work's on GitHub or something like that. Yeah, I can kind of see that you'd want that metadata there, but yeah, I don't think it's necessary here. And even on projects I work on it, we're still pretty laid back on that. We have this perennial debate. It's a good humored debate about whether you should do merge commits or rebase. And there's reasons for both. What do you use? Merge commits or rebase or squash commit? Oh, yeah, I was going to check out this PDF. Let me see. Let me just check the license on it because I can't really just spam copyrighted material on the stream. It's the use of patterns as an urban design approach. Might be good reference material. Yeah, I think so. I'm going to link the article to the issue. It's got a lot of footnotes. Oh, and it's CC by. All right. So, School of Architecture, Ariel University, Israel. Urban design is a complex problem-solving activity that commonly requires the aid of a variety of methods. We rebased. Yeah, that makes sense. Kyle, are you still in there? I think I found an article for you. Kyle is our mathematical and academic contributor doing the kind of research side of things and going to help us with some more, I believe when the time comes, going to help us more like with these geospatial and geometric and, data processing intensive kind of things. All right, how did I get here? There's a link. One thing that's kind of annoying is that if I copy this link address, it's like Googleified. Whereas when I hover over it, it's not Googleified. How do you de-Googleify Google links? Let me just double check that I'm not wrong here. Oh, it just worked fine. Okay. I was wrong. Yeah, I've been kind of, what would you say, indoctrinated into the rebase camp. In any case, it's not so bad, but man, it has caused some grief. And I've had troubles with it, and other developers and junior developers, and you have to rebase early, rebase often, rebase daily, rebase in the morning, rebase in the evening, rebase at supper time. Sacramento, California. This is a pretty good one. I don't know the license, but it pasted in urban design, patterns, scale, and places for people. And I think we're going to just kind of consolidate these resources into a general page on our documentation site. But right now I'm just going to post them in this issue. Okay, we're at 1.5 hours. I'll probably try to wind down a little bit. Let me think here. Yeah, this will be the last. I'm not going to be able to stream this weekend, so I'll be back probably. Well, I'm not sure. I don't have a schedule, basically. Tuesday or Wednesday. Or Thursday of next week at the latest, Thursday. Oh, wow, we got a pull request already. Oh, man. All right. Cool, very cool. One guideline I recommend on pull requests is that we use this, the closes and the issue number, or there's like, you know, these GitHub keywords or whatever they are. Because what that does is it actually automatically links the issue. It should have. Let me just double check that. Is it a draft? This is number 7, so that doesn't work. Sorry about that. What did I add developer? So yes, the issue, you can't, it's self-referencing. It's going to close itself. Now here we go. It has this link to it. Yeah, just to be, I don't know. That's one thing I tried to do consistently. Even though issues and pull requests are very similar, but you know, you can assign people and add labels and all that stuff. Milestones. But yeah, I don't know. So that's just a habit I've been doing, because our issue log will grow more than the PRs probably, and it's good just to have reference to what's going on. So cool, looks great. Let me just review that. And this is kind of fun, you know, just I think it gives people an idea of like what it's like collaborating on open source projects and stuff like that. Yeah, so for these, let's use triple backticks. I think you can do a code block with a code block. No, you can't really do a code block with a code block. How do you do just like an example? The cool thing about the triple backticks is, I don't know if it matters, but this is part of peer review. Let you put a language there. Let's see if that works. Start a review. Yeah, how do you GitHub comments? You know what I'm saying, though? Yeah, and you don't have to tag the language. But I think syntactic whitespace works good in Python, but not so much in readmes. For some reason, I've just had an aversion to that. It's not a big deal. This is just feedback. I'll just say it's a general comment. If you want to discuss it, I'm going to, just do a normal review. This is pretty common stuff. So I'm not trying to be too much of a stickler. Oh, but I think we should probably tell them how to set up a virtual environment, to be honest, because I don't think it's good to encourage people to pollute their global pip environment, you know what I mean? So I will add that as a request, if you don't mind. Request for changes. Like, please. this one out. We have a bunch of these in the, oh shoot. I wanted to control click that. Blast. Yeah, just for this project, let's just do the regular old pip, and assuming we're using Python 3, you know, Python 2 is at EOL. So, and let me just link in here in our git ignore. Where were those? This is the default GitHub thing, but just for reference. Here there. So there's a bunch of them that are kind of common. How do you do? But basically, we actually just want these. If I do that, I think it'll just... Huh. I should render that out, right? Maybe I didn't create a permalink. Let me just double check that. Oh yes, if I copy permalink, then I think it'll automatically render it. You have to have like a commit blob in there. There it goes. Alrighty then, this is really useful. Alright, new user account, good stuff. Yeah. Yeah, that's good advice on the managed Pi. They use a // For some reason, it doesn't work on my local machine. I haven't tried it recently, though. I updated Ubuntu 2004, but I've had to use Python and then manage Pi forever. So I've just got in a habit. So that could cause people some problems, but it's good otherwise. No, I use Linux. That's the weird thing. Is like, it seems like it should just work // manage Pi. Yeah. Cool. This looks good, though. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, let's just, for context, not assume anything. It's hard to know where to draw the line of, the tacit information versus like explicit information that needs to be clarified. But I think it's worth just saying get it in a virtual environment, because we could have potentially contributors of all, experience levels. So people who've never worked with Python might be stepping up to do even some JavaScript work or something. They would still have to run the project, I think. It might be by now. Yeah, I might actually, now that we're talking about it, let me just go ahead and try this, because let's just take a look. Let me get, I have to open up the right project. I don't even know if I've cloned this locally, to be honest. We were doing pair programming last session, and I was actually with Max, and I was actually accessing Max's machine. Yeah, I haven't even cloned this repo, so let's do that. Git. And I have to put in my passphrase. One moment. Okay, sorry for the silence there. Only specifies Python. Yeah, that's right. So that could be the problem that I was experiencing. There was this, I think it should work now, because there was this transitionary period where the default Python version for Linux operating systems, including Ubuntu, is Python 2, but now I think Ubuntu 2004, I think, is the first one that Python 3 is default, or it's very recently. Yeah, so it should work now. Right. Yes. And you can see I'm having a little bit of troubles with my, but here you go. Python 2.7. I did install 2.7. Okay. Or it shipped with 2.7, but I thought that was going to be removed. Let's just go ahead and I'll need to set up an environment. Let's just hop in there real quick. So yeah, let me just follow your developer instructions, your new developer instructions. So I've just cloned the project. What do you think? Is like cloning the project something people would know? I've oftentimes mentioned that Git is a dependency. You know, and you have to install Git on your machine because even that has, well, been a barrier to entry. But yeah, I don't know if we need that in our README. What are your thoughts here? What's your experience with that? Okay, cool. And what's your operating system? Do you have multiple versions of Python installed? What am I doing? Terminal. New terminal. All right, so let's view the README in the pull request. So, and I wish GitHub would be a little bit nicer on mobile, or like split screen even. It's pretty like, well, inflexible. So yeah, I'll just do Python version. So yeah, I'm in 2.7 is my default. It could be because I didn't install this fresh. I actually upgraded it from the previous version of Ubuntu, so my Python hasn't been aliased. But I could change that. Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, I mean, we can leave it out anyway, but I was just curious what your experience is with that. And, you know, not everybody's going to be doing code. They might have to just check it out to do, I don't know, documentation or testing and stuff like that. So there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of diversity, I think, is what we've got to kind of acknowledge and realize, you know, just that other people have different perspectives and different experiences, right? That's just a common thing. And sometimes we just, I just kind of assume, especially when I'm like helping people with computers or whatever, I get frustrated sometimes because what seems like obvious to me just is baffling. And I just have to remind myself that it's because I've done that before and I've internalized it, and it wasn't obvious to me the first time I did it, but now it's obvious because I've had experience and exposure to the, you know, procedure of cloning a Git repository or something like that. But yeah, makes sense. And I like this idea of all contributors. The all contributors project is it's kind of affirming that not everybody's going to even contribute code. There's people who contribute design or just pull requests, feature requests, or they test it out, or they help with documentation, or they add, you know, building community. There's a lot of ways people contribute. So yeah, but I don't disagree with your point. That essentially, if they're going to write some code and contribute the code, which is why we're giving developer environment setup instructions, they'll probably be comfortable with Git. So I'm just going to go Python 3 exam, and actually, yeah, it can be in this directory, I suppose. And the new virtual environment's created. Do you want to select it for the workspace folder? Yes, I do. Now, you're saying that I should be able to just run manage.py /manage.py. Just clear the terminal /manage.py. Let me make it big so I can see any errors. Right? Run or migrate. Yeah, just give it a quick example. And yeah, I do often just create a simple markdown link, on the word virtual environment to some kind of canonical or useful documentation, at least if there's not an official one. Sometimes the official documentation is a little bit TLDR kind of a thing, but without a TLDR. So yeah. All right, so that's just there anyway. What's the deal here? So Python. Still. Oh, because I didn't activate it. Sorry. As you can see, why these instructions are useful. By the way, do you use anything like Pippin for poetry, or what? There's another one I can't remember now. Now it works. Migrate. And no, Pippin cell requirement says, geez. Good to go. But yeah, I think it's going to work. It's already trying to interpret it, and Python's saying, hey, no module found. All right, so I can get lazy now and not have to type Python in front of everything. Wrapped. Did not know what that means. But we're good to go. Let's just do Raleigh. Oh, goodness. The book depository just charged my card. So I experience a high volume of customer support inquiries. Yo, bypass it. No, I'm reflexively saying Python now. Manage run server. Virtual example. Okay, I already read that one. Very cool. Just at 2 hours, man. This is, I think, a really good progress. It's like not a lot of coding involved, but I mean, just having contributors, I think, is really exciting. At the stage of this project being so just like such just an idea, it's so alpha right now, but we've already got people who are showing interest. I think it's a really cool idea, and I'm really eager for other people to take it in different directions. If anything, just playing these SimCity, SimCity 2000, City Skylines is fun. And, as important as sustainability is in urban design, and as much as it's become clear that our economic model isn't sustainable, just even for a 3-month hiatus, a 3-month social distancing, it's like we're facing economic collapse, right? So there's something wrong in the neighborhood. Who are we going to call? We'll have to call the urban designers and community champions and open source developers. So let's come together and develop a game-like experience, a video game-like experience to help random people off the street to look at the sustainability aspects of their own communities and to run simple experiments like, if we put a school in here, how many households would be affected? How many would be positively affected by having proximity to a school or green space or a healthcare center and things like that? What are the areas in our cities, the neighborhoods and buildings that are in need of proximity to like a 5-mile? There's guidelines such as like within a certain number of kilometers there should be a certain number of hectares of green space, and cities define their own guidelines. I'm sort of reading this in the Urban Planning for Dummies book. So that's a good one too. But yeah, this is the gist of it, and we're just getting started, and I hope it gets to a point where it's sort of self-sustaining. This shouldn't be my project. This is, I'm hoping to be a community endeavor. So yeah, Quantum, thank you very much for helping make it easy for developers to get started with this. That's super important for building community. I'll try to do a little bit of work on getting our communication channels set up and documented. Quantum, do you have a recommendation on VPS providers for discourse hosting? I've used DigitalOcean, and in Hacker News discussions I've recently read that Hetzner is pretty reasonably priced. And I've also tried a couple of other providers like Linode, and this bare bones one that was using ARM architecture. They were based in France, but something about it, just the quality wasn't there. In any case, I'll put this in the README. OVH, that's a good one too, and they have servers in Europe and Germany. Yeah. I'll have to do a comparison. I don't want to break the budget, but Discourse. We don't have 10 contributors yet. If we can get 10 contributors in Quantum, you're putting us one contributor closer to that. We might even qualify for free Discourse hosting. Right now, how many contributors are we? I could go in and spam some Git addresses. If anyone would really, please contribute to this project, I think we'll qualify there. And I believe there's a legitimate need for a project like this to have an asynchronous communication channel. The paint of the payment, that might not be too bad. They don't just take regular, like Visa Electron or something like that. That's interesting. Yeah, DigitalOcean's got a really good experience, pretty competitively priced. You can get like 2 gigs, server with 2 gigs of RAM for I think around $10 a month, which is like €7 a month. Not bad. Oh, okay, see an idea or something? Yeah, maybe I can do that. All right, well, I'll do a comparison. I'll try to get a Discourse set up, or do you recommend any open source forum software? OVH is in France as well. That's not who I was thinking of earlier, by the way. But I can't remember this company that's they got VPS servers that with ARM architecture for like €2 a month or something. They're based in France. Can't remember the name of them though. I just think Discourse is pretty much like the pinnacle of open source community forums right now. So I'm just going to go with that probably. I have an affinity for Django, but Discourse is written in Ruby on Rails, but I'm not going to hold that against them. And it looks like a gig of RAM would be enough, 10 gigs of space. Yes, and I've had several recommendations for Discord in general on this stream, but I did set up today a Riot channel. And Riot is more, it's more synchronous. In Discord, it's sort of synchronous, asynchronous. There's that continuum, and these chat things kind of like Slack and Discord and Riot, they're kind of like towards the synchronous into the continuum. And then you got a little bit of overlap in the synchronous with and asynchronous with the chats, and then forums, in particular forums that have sort of like a push architecture or notification architecture. You can get pretty rapid responses in those for asynchronous all the way to days or months. Many chat channels. Yeah, and that's the thing with Matrix. You can also set up many chat channels. So that's why I went with Matrix. It's open source. It's a federated chat protocol. Riot IM is all their clients are open source. I think for open source projects, I want to really promote federated and open source services. But I agree. Discourse is good, and I'm on Discourse as well. Just convincing people to join yet another communications channel is a challenge. But I think if we can get a critical mass on the Matrix network, because it's federated, there's tons of Matrix instances. Have you ever checked out Matrix, by the way? Quantum. It's pretty good. and IRC is born here in Finland, but I think it's got such a painful onboarding experience that I don't even recommend it for general community channels. It's just so kind of difficult. But yeah, with these matrix, it's I don't know, more or less a Slack replacement. And it's all federated, so different servers can interoperate, intercommunicate. Not only that, but they can bridge to other types of channels. So if somebody wants to set up a discourse or a Slack or an IRC, Matrix can actually do a two-way bridging with those. And it's funded by nonprofits. So this is why I'm really going with the Matrix on the more asynchronous end of things. And particularly, again, I sent the link, but Riot.im is a Matrix implementation, kind of like the reference implementation of a Matrix client. And all of their software is open source, the browser and desktop app, as well as the Android and iOS apps. You got the links down here to GitHub. Synapse is something like this server. Matrix is the protocol. Synapse is an implementation of the protocol. It's a reference implementation, and it's mostly written in Python. That's interesting. Yeah, and that's the cool thing. Like, somebody's on a different Matrix channel, you can just different Matrix server. You can just like sending an email to different email servers. You can message people over there or subscribe to channels on different servers. I think it's got a lot of potential. And it even integrates with like Jitsi Meet. You've probably heard about that with the sort of little bit of controversy going on around Zoom. And so some people are saying, hey, well, in Hacker News, for example, saying, hey, give Jitsi a try. You know, in sort of the Matrix channel, you can integrate a Jitsi room in there somehow. There's these integrations. Where's that? Here's the share room. Where we got advanced, general. Somehow I just set it up, but there's like integrations that you can add. Oh no, it's the squares. If you click the squares, it's pretty cool. So Quantum, it would be really nice if you consider hopping onto our Matrix channel, giving it a try. I'll try to form the community over there. We got sticker packs. And here's a couple of other ones. If you're using Grafana for your tracking your metrics, Jitsi Meet for real-time voice and video conferencing, Etherpad for real-time collaborative documents, EtherCalc is like a real-time spreadsheet, of course, you might have heard of that, YouTube embedding videos and sharing calendar events, sharing what music's playing. Then you can bridge to these other communication forums, and I should probably set up a GitHub bot just so it'll kind of integrate the development activity. Travis CI. Pretty cool. Okay, well, I should... Pretty bad at keeping track of minutes. Yeah, me too. Totally. But I've already got this Matrix installed on my laptop and put it on my phone. And I'm in a few groups here, and there's a Code Buddies channel, so I'm going to sort of maintain a presence on here. You know, I also use proprietary messengers, so there's no shame in the game there. I use Slack at work, and I'm on a few other Slack channels, and I have Discord installed, I think, still. What else do I use? I think I have a Telegram, and I definitely have a WhatsApp, so I'm not trying to preach anything, but I'm just advocating for this Riot.im and Matrix as a really cool solution for community building and open source communities in general, or specifically. All right, well, I will wrap it up for the evening. Go relax and maybe watch a movie or something. So thank you very much. Oh, let me get this pull request merged. Did you, I think, make that change? Oh, okay. Did you push that change, Quantum? And if not, it's not a big deal. I can do that. Addition, I think this is already good. Oh, you're working on it still. Okay, sorry. I'm not trying to rush you. I just was going to merge this. I think it's good. So I will wait until we can see a cool feature. It comes with Python 3. 3 minus m module venv, and the environment name is the, so I just use Python 3 minus module venv, virtual environment, and then the environment name could be .env, or .env, or just regular env. Any of these options here is cool. You had to install it separately than Mint. I didn't realize that. It's kind of strange. I thought that was just part of Python 3 core. Well, learn something new every day. Are you running Python 3.7 just out of curiosity? 3.7 or 3.8 or? I think you had posted earlier about that, but. Anyway. 3.6.9. Okay. Could be a 3.7 thing. But I guess as of 3.5, the use of venv is now recommended for creating virtual environments. Interesting. All right, cool. So did the command work for you, like the approach I pasted above, or is that what you basically figured out after you installed it? It's just split onto I'm in a separate package. That's cool. So Mint, does Mint use Debian packaging? I used to use Mint. I can't remember. It's been so long. Or do they have their own packaging, RPM? All right, cool. So we'll just go ahead and get that one merged in. Yeah, cheap. 1 gig VPS is like $5 a month or something. What, 2 gigs is about 10 a month. Hmm. One gig RAM. All right. I should just do it. Use APT, yeah, so it's Debian packaging. Cool. All right. Did you push that? I can get it reviewed in there, or just let me know. I don't want to hold you up or anything. All right, so I got those linked in. I got that one linked in. I guess this is the original source that the software design patterns were inspired by Christopher Alexander's timeless way of building. 1979. So I thought it was like in the 70s, but I wasn't exactly sure. Right. Urban patterns. So one thing we might, it wants to track my PyEnv configuration. Sorry, I'm just noticing this. It seems the current gitignore doesn't ignore .env directory contents. It should, because that's in the gitignore file, as I posted in the pull request, straight from the code, actually. See right here. Are you creating your environment in the repository root, or are you creating it in the Django app directory? That could be the problem. Yeah, that makes sense. So we could do like star dot. Yeah, what's a general guideline? I'm thinking we're probably going to want to start encouraging people to create the environment in the Django app root and not the repository root, but it hasn't become a problem yet. Oh, well, creating the repo root should work, because that's where our gitignore is. I'm going to double check here, but that's strange. So it should. I thought it would ignore this whole. You know why? Because it doesn't end up with a slash. So it's and it's using .env files, which are a different thing. .env standard is kind of, it's a file for storing environment variables more conventionally. I just did with env. No, I didn't worry about hiding it. I didn't make it a hidden file. Yeah, maybe go ahead and add a line in the gitignore during this pull request, perhaps. It's fine. With .env slash and .venv slash, because that seems to be the problem. It's treating these as files because they don't, I believe they don't contain the slash. What do you think? That's right. Yeah. That's why I would keep this .env in there, so we can avoid accidentally checking in environmental variables. But yeah, it's just got a naming collision basically with the way some people track Python environments. But as you're noting, it's the default gitignore. We can almost open a pull request with the default gitignore people. Do you want to open this pull request, or I can do it? I think it's worth changing, missing a star. Or it's just, I think it's the trailing slash. Try adding a trailing slash to it and see what happens. You tried with env, but did you do .env slash? Because that's the key thing. Let me just read your messages a little bit closer, though, because I might have misunderstood. Where did it go? Yeah, in your first message you say, it seems the current gitignore doesn't ignore the .env directory contents. But I tried it with env slash and it still tracks it. So you need to try it with .env slash. Subtle difference, but that's probably going to be meaningful to the computer. And it's funny how touchy computers are and how kind of like pedantic we have to be. No, I mean I tried it with env as the directory name. And it doesn't work either. That's telling me something different, because my env here in the root directory is ignored. And if I cd deactivate, and if I do python -m venv.env, if I put it there, sure, just for now. That's ignored as well. You can see all that's changed is my VS Code settings JSON. This is quite strange, because I'm just on the master branch, as you can see. I've got my environments here in the root. And this is the ignore rules. What's your Git version? Maybe there's something different from our versions. I'm running 2.26. When did 2.17 come out? Yeah, the slash should work, and even without it, is working on mine. 2.17 came out in 2018, though, with a recent patch, though, so it must be an LTS. 2.26. Actually, man, I to be honest, what does this red mean? It's an old version. Old version still maintained, though. I think something about the package maintainers, they're lagging behind a bit, and you should be at least at 2.22, if not 2.26. Yeah, and I think it's just with the version of Git you're running. So let's leave the Git ignore alone unless it's like giving you problems. You're updating. Oh, okay. Well, there's an update available. All right, cool then. We have 2.17. So I guess they had a security patch they backported or something. Alrighty then, looking good. But so did you? Let's double check. Come over here to the pull requests. Probably haven't been able to push that because you're having troubles with the environment and stuff, huh? It's strange the things that can crop up in development that can throw people for a loop. And I think we should not be checking in VS Code into the project, to be honest. I thought that was in the git ignore. Yeah, it's right here. So I'll probably have to use a repo cleaner or something. Why? It's because this has already been committed prior to the git ignore rule. But if I did this, what does that do? Star. Yeah, it's still being tracked. The file's been committed. What IDE are you running, Quantum? Or text editor or whatever? Okay, so it's something with the version of Git, or what was the deal? Atom? Yeah, I was using Atom for a long time. Okay, winding down a little bit. I think we got a pretty good few things on our milestone 0.1. Well, we all make mistakes. We're not dumb necessarily. We're human, right? we're all dummies, though. I'm reading the Dummies book on urban planning, so yeah, just all right to be humble and realize that the extent of our knowledge is so limited, so minuscule. And things like even just computer systems are so like precise and pedantic and brittle. All right, cool. Well, if you got it worked out, no problem. So yeah, I think in the next pair or live streaming session, I'll just dig into one of these issues, probably the urban design pattern library. And then we'll be able to get something deployed into people's hands relatively soon. So we'll need a VM VPS for that. Probably a 1 gig just basic thing for a Django app to run. Might go over the process of setting up Doku, which is Doku is a nice Heroku alternative, open source way of hosting. It's like a platform as a service for hosting your apps in various languages, and it uses this standard developed by Heroku called build packs, I think is what it is, to deploy portable apps using Docker. It's like one command to get it set up on the server, more or less. And there's some good examples on how to set up Docker for Django apps and other different types of apps. Let's see what we got. Build pack deployments, probably what we'll be looking at. I haven't created a Docker file for this project. And essentially what it does is it allows you to git push to a branch, and then it'll rebuild your changes. And you'll have a git remote on the Doku server. It's pretty cool. Similar to what you're probably used to with Heroku if you've used that before. Yeah, and you can just add your app there, and it has Django support. There's a couple tutorials, at least. I thought there was even something in the official docs about Django. No big deal. All right. So how's that pull request? We're ready to merge. Nope. I'll just go ahead and resolve these conversations so it's a little easier to watch for the commit. Samuel, cool. All right, sounds good. No rush. I'm just trying to be timely when you get that pushed up to GitHub. I don't know if there's much more documentation we need to add right now. Smartphones baffle me. I guess I'm getting old. I just can't figure stuff out. The cool thing is Docker has like these recipes that allow you to like quickly connect to Postgres database or other build packs. There's a whole bunch of them. I thought there was like a list of these Docker build packs. Or apps. Maybe there's this thing, Awesome Doku. All right, chain pushed. Yay! Oh, you had to force push it. That's strange. Or do you just normally force push? Is that a thing? thanks though for being so thorough and adding and responding to the feedback, because I know you already gone above and beyond. Hey, I thought I'd resolve this and helping people to get connected to this project. So yeah, this is really cool. I didn't refresh. That's the problem. Ah, okay. So it's not a blue. Interesting. Cool. Yeah. Oh, and triple backticks. Nice. Thanks. Very cool. All right. Yeah. It looks like we got the stuff we need. I will approve the changes, and that, for those of you who haven't probably done much software development, is how we do pull request review. It's typically pretty, I don't know, some organizations are more stricter, formal or whatever, but, I think it's good-natured, and we're helping to improve each other's code, and we're, building something better, building something to serve, to better people's lives and with these open source projects. So try to be, mindful of code quality, and peer review is important because it gives the developer a second pair of eyes and a different perspective that might be orthogonal to what they're working on. They might be kind of deep in some syntax and Python libraries or whatever, getting things to work, and then the peer reviewer can come in kind of with fresh eyes and look at it in broader context, like how does this fit with the project guidelines, or if I was a new developer, would I know how to set up a Python virtual environment, which is what we're discussing here, and stuff like that. So yeah, I really appreciate it. Samuel, yes, thank you, and I'll try to call you by your first name as I remember these. Okay, let me check this out. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Oh, right. I should use that more often. So you had already pushed up a commit, but then you amended it locally, and you needed a force push so that so the remote branch had the same commit history. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I need to use amend more often as well, because I just end up making sort of too many commits probably sometimes. Not a whole lot, but yeah. All right, Sam. All right, I will call you by your preferred name. And be patient with me. I'm forgetful, but I'll try it. And I really do appreciate it, Sam. Just every contribution is welcome, and having meaningful developer guidelines and way to get started is super important for open source projects. Yeah, feature branches. So that is one thing we'll do on this project, feature branches. We're not going to prescribe any necessarily like Git flow or any really specific workflow, but just do your work in a branch. And Sam, if you're interested in contributing further, perhaps join a discussion or add some thoughts to one of these issues, or if you've got any ideas for the app, what you would think would be useful for people promoting sustainable urban design, or practitioners, what kind of tools they would need, feel free to open up any issues for discussion. This is a community-oriented project. I've only got a few ideas for it, so I'm going to have to rely on other people to flesh it out and take it to a different level. Very cool. Thanks, Sam, and enjoy your dinner. Look forward to seeing you around soon. All right. Well, this has been a CodeBuddies.org kind of live code hangout a little bit. Sam did most of the coding today. I was sort of working on project maintenance, a little backlog, not even grooming at this point. We're just creating an initial roadmap for this project that's clearly an alpha at this stage, but it's got, I think, some great potential and already has 3 contributors, so that's really a plus. If you're interested in getting involved with this project or other projects similar to this in many different languages and frameworks, drop by CodeBuddies.org. There's a lot of different groups. You can see the schedule of upcoming hangouts when I add one there, and other developers who are also collaborating through the CodeBuddies community. One last thing I'll say is CodeBuddies.org is under a rewrite. The next generation of the platform is open source. The current version is also open source. And it's looking like the backend is most likely going to be written in Django. There's already a prototype coming together with the front end in React. So if you're a new or experienced developer with either of those technologies and would like to get involved with a really cool community open source project, stop by github.com/codebuddies. Thanks again for hanging out, checking out this video on YouTube, and stay safe out there.